Hello, I'm Sarah from SRTT and I help busy people make self-care a priority. You're listening to Conversations with Sarah, and today I'm joined by George to talk about mental health first aid. Hi, George.
Hi Sarah. As you say, I'm George or Georgina Patterson from Moor Mindful, and I am a life coach, business consultant, which you'll understand more around the realm of why I work there, and a mental health first aid instructor, which is what I'm coming to chat with you today.
Thank you. Thanks so much for coming to talk to me. So mental health first aid is not something I really know much about, other than what we've talked about previously. So I'm really quite interested to hear a bit more about it today. So I guess the first question for me would be, what is mental health first aid?
Yeah, it makes sense. What is it? Yeah, I think there's quite a lot around and people keep hearing it, but not really understanding what it is. So mental health first aid is effectively, the idea of it is being equivalent to physical first aid. So that first instant knowledge and awareness. It was established years ago in Australia, like back in 2000, and they started doing this. And then it came over to England in around about 2007, 2009.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a course that is there basically to build individual skills and confidence to recognise signs and symptoms of just basically your common mental health issues, such as depression, anxiety, eating disorders, suicide, self-harm. And it does touch on psychosis, schizophrenia, that sort of level, but doesn't really go too much into that, but just to give you that sort of awareness. And it's about giving people the skills, as I say, and the confidence to go, hold on, I'm noticing something, or you seem to be, or somebody else can talk to them, because then they can direct them into the right support. So whether that be self-help or whether that be a professional sort of support, that's the sort of the general idea of the mental health first aid. So you become a mental health first aider, similar to a physical first aider. That's the general idea behind it.
Okay. So why do you think it's important to have these first aiders in the workplace?
So the thing for me, one is that not only does it give you those skills and that confidence, it also looks at teaching you how to look after yourself. It gives you that greater awareness, and it is the underlying underneath it all is about getting people talking about mental health, which I think is just generally really important. We don't do enough of it. There's not enough people talking about it. It also starts to break down some of the stigmas. If you've got a little bit more understanding, then you're not necessarily going to have so much stigma around it. It can break down barriers. It's about looking at some of the myths as well. And also, it does show that, it's not that odd person down the street who's got something. Actually, it's probably more prevalent than we realise.
Yeah,
they do throw a lot of statistics into the course, so you get that realisation that this isn't this mystical thing that happens every now and again. It's a lot more prevalent. So there's been loads of studies that have gone on that have looked into mental health first aid, and they've sort of said, it's great and it's brilliant in doing what it does in the workplace. So the whole idea is, with a mental health first aider, they're in the workplace, people can come and speak to them, or they can be part of a whole sort of organisation set up around health and wellbeing. But within that, a lot of the studies have found that it's raised the conversation about mental health. It's raised the, reduced barriers for people to be talking about mental health. The courses that I've run so far, the biggest thing is people go, I didn't know that, or I didn't see it that way. Or they start to get a new perspective on it, as in, I've had some people who've been very much, so we're supposed to just like cuddle them and do things like that just because they're feeling a bit down. And then when you start to look at it, they start to go, oh, yeah, it's not quite that, no.
Yeah.
Or you get that real mix of, well, why are they getting sad about that? That's nothing compared to what I've had to do. And you start to say, yeah, but we're all different. We all have completely different backgrounds. We all have different coping mechanisms. We all have different way of life. So, yeah, it's really breaking down some of that stuff, which I think is really important.
completely agree with you. It's so important to destigmatize sort of mental health and getting mental health support, because as you say, most of us have an experience where we don't have no, our mental health isn't as well as we would like it to be, that we are going through an experience where we need some support. So having that in the workplace, someone being able to recognize that maybe you do need a little bit of support must make such a difference to a workplace environment.
Yeah, and it's that just understand, I mean, my experience of when you see mental health in the workplace is, right, well, we'll just send them on sick for a few weeks and we'll just let them do that, and then we'll just leave them alone, and actually some people live with depression, anxiety, eating disorders for years, and sometimes some of them you can manage it, they do whatever they need to do. But ideally, what you need to be doing is talking to the individual and asking them, how do they want that to be working in the workplace? And that's the other side of it, of that, we'll just let them go there and we won't talk about things and we won't mention anything, because what we don't want to do is trigger it even more or do this anymore. And you're like, do you know what? Sometimes all they want is just, to know that they're not an alien, they're not weird, they're not odd. We're all dealing with this together and you're still part of the team.
Yeah, sometimes the things not being spoken about is far more difficult than things being, or there being a space where it's okay to talk if that's what you want to do. So that sounds invaluable, that people will be able to have the skills to be able to allow a conversation and signpost people onto where is going to be supportive for them, as opposed to it being a one size fits all. Oh, if you've got this problem, then we're just going to offload you here, and that's it.
Yeah, and a lot of the course is, so they give you, there's an action plan. So when you actually if you do the 2-day course, that's our whole thing, you get a great big massive booklet which breaks down nearly every sort of mental disorder, gives you loads of advice, places to go. You get a little workbook, and then you get a little action plan. Okay. So, and within that action plan, which gets repeated throughout the course, is about being non-judgmental and listening, because we don't always listen, active listening, that bit of going, don't assume, don't jump in, listen to what the person is actually saying, that communication skills. So as you were saying, that ability to go and speak to someone and feel it's safe to speak to someone. That's the whole thread that goes through there, that you're not there to pass judgment. You're not there to laugh at somebody or to tell them to get over it. You're there listening to what's going on for them and then working out, okay, which way do we go forward with this together? That's the supporting part of it, is right. How am I going to guide you now to get the sort of the right support, and that, at any sort of level. I mean, this goes through all the levels from stress, which technically isn't a mental health disorder, but it creates mental health, all the way up to somebody who is at the point of thinking about suicide. So, there's different ways of what you will do at different stages and how you would sort of react to that. And what's really good, I like about this course in particular, isn't just in the workplace. You can use it at home as well. So there's that element, or even your neighbour across the road, that some of the case studies that they use are about your neighbour across the road that you suddenly start to see not coming out of their house, or they're not interacting as they used to. Is there something else going on? Could you go and just knock on the door and just say, is everything all right? And then have the confidence that if they go, no, everything isn't all right, you know what to do. Because I think that gets us scared. There's a big thing at the moment of, are you okay? Are you okay? Yeah. And I wonder if people don't ask that second question because they're scared of, what happens if they say, no, I'm not okay? What do I do with that then? And this course sort of does that. This sort of shows you, right, this is what you could do, or even to be able to hold it for a second, to know then to look into what to do with it. And that's the whole idea of it. I mean, they do have slightly different levels, because this is actually under Mental Health First Aid England. And they do like a Champions, which is a day's course, and then they do an Awareness, which is just a general looking at mental health. So it's all part of a much bigger picture of raising the profile of mental health, getting people talking about it and not being scared of what happens if they say I'm not okay? Or actually, here's some little cues and here's some information that might at least be able to help you, or be able to sit with them to find the help that might be more suitable for them. At least you'll have an idea of where to go, where to look, what to do. So yeah, great at building that side of it.
I mean, it sounds amazing. I mean, I know I'm thinking as you're talking, like before I did my counselling training, like I really struggled, like in my other therapeutic work, my body work, like for doing energy healing and things, and people got emotional. I just didn't know what to do, because I would feel like I needed to fix it and make it all okay. And of course, through your counselling training, you learn all of these skills. So as I'm hearing you talk, it's like, yeah, actually, it can feel quite a lot to ask someone if they're okay and then tell you they're not okay, and kind of not, it's like, oh, what do I do? What do I do now? Now that person's opened up to me and said they're not okay, like, where do I go? So that's got to be such a useful tool for people, like, just like you say, anywhere really, to that connection that we've all been missing out on through lockdown. You know, we're seeing that there are knock-on effects to people's mental health with what we're going through as a society in the last year. So people having that skill that you're talking about now is going to make such a difference going forward.
Yeah, and that was part of the reason that I sort of went into it. So my previous life, I worked in welfare, looking after people, and some of the training I had, you know, as you say, with counselling, you learn how to manage that, how to hold that, how to sort of do that. But prior to that, I was like, what happens if I ask this question and they say this and they say they're not okay? Where do I go? What do I do? And how do you sort of manage that? And, you know, luckily my training, the same as your counselling training, gives you the skills to be able to go, it's okay, I can manage this, I can do this. Whereas I thought, do you know what, there's lots of people out there, and particularly as you saying, doing your body work, and hairdressers I think of, and beauticians, and anybody that sees people one-to-one who has that client. I mean, I know when I go to the hairdresser, yeah, we might talk about some rubbish, but then we'll talk about something that may be going on for us. And I just think, you know, that poor hairdresser stood there going, right, okay, they've just told me that and I'm not quite sure what to do with this, or I do know what to do with it. Or they get told something that's actually really quite emotive. Where do they then go with that? What do they then do with that? The same as anybody who's doing that one-to-one, or even somebody who has regular clients that come in. You know, anybody that, so PTs, you know, they see people, why is somebody not doing the exercises that I set them? Why are they always coming in telling me they're tired? Is there something else going on there? It could be simply somebody who regularly goes and picks up their, you know, their dog food from a set place every time, has a quick chat, they start to build a conversation, and then suddenly they might just say, yeah, actually, this is going on for me at the minute. It could be anywhere, the thing. And I think that for me was that actually people need to have that confidence to do it, one, and the other bit is them knowing where to go, and that comes from having that confidence. You know, they sort of go hand in hand. And very much, you know, thinking about why I sort of quite like this was I dealt a lot with people who had a lot of myths around mental health. You know, they would come in and go, well, that's it. So my girlfriend has got this, and that's it. My life now has to stop because I need to care for them. And I'm sort of saying, well, actually, there's loads of other options that you've got. This is what you could do. Because they just lacked the knowledge of what mental health actually is all around. You know, it's not like there is this box and that box and you either got it or not got it. We all have mental health. Everybody in the world has mental health. It's just whether you're at the good end or the bad end, or the positive end or the negative end. And we slide up and down, you know, we go from one end to the other, and we'll have days where we might go more towards one end and then come back. And I think it's trying to break that down and sort of saying, you know, we don't, and not everybody who has, say, depression feels the same, acts the same, does the same.
Absolutely.
Not everybody who has anxiety does this, does that. Not everybody who has a phobia does this, does that. And it's also very much when I'm training anyway, I very much go, do you know what? There isn't also one answer. There's so many different options out there. There's so many different things. And, you know, if one thing doesn't work, try something else. And that could be you try the same sort of therapy, but with a different therapist, or you try a different type of therapy. And it might be you do some work and then you might need a different type. So there's that breaking everything down, because there tends to be this, that's it, I've got it, that's it, that's it. Actually, lots of help out there.
Completely. And it's like physical health. We don't just do like one exercise on one day and be like, yes, I am healthy, I've now got my six pack. It's cumulative, isn't it? We think about what we put into our body, we think about how we're moving, we might use different exercises, we might go to different places, work with different people, and that's, you know, really championed to be like, yes, get out there and be fit. So why not apply that to our mental emotional health? It makes, you know, complete sense that there is a spectrum of things, there's a spectrum of things that we can be doing, and even as I want to say non-professional, so obviously as a counsellor we're professionals, as coaches we're professionals, like even there's something that you can do, and you can be of a support to people with the skills that you learn by learning this first aid, mental health first aid.
I mean, so even, you know, there's a proportion of it that is about how do you support everybody else, but there's also bits that they look into about supporting yourself and looking after yourself, and that radiates all the way through of and because obviously you're learning what impacts you'll only ever apply it to yourself anyway, because you'll be sat there going, does that mean I've got this? Oh my god, I do that. Oh dear. And it does show you that, you know, that we all have down days and we all have sad days and we all have that, but actually there's a set amount of time before it even gets into the realm of you're looking at depression, which I think is, you know, that difference between, you can have a few sad days, you can have a couple of days where you just feel rubbish, does not mean you are depressed. You know, there's almost like another travel to do that. But when we're talking about the continuum from good to bad, yes, you are probably going to be traveling along that line a little bit. So what do you put in place to then bring you back again? But they also talk about, and it's all out there for people to have a look about, is 10 keys to health, to happier living, and 5 ways to wellbeing. So there's whole set plans. Mental Health First Aid England also do a Selfcare, Bring Yourself to Work Day. This year it was March the 18th, and it's roughly around the same time each year. You know, it's that looking after yourself, and even through the whole of the course as well, and that learning, you're learning how to look after yourself. And luckily, some of the things that we do to look after our physical health can also help our mental health, you know, eating right, sleeping, exercising. It's like a 2-for-1 sort of deal there. You look after it for this, you can be looking after it for that as well. And there's, you know, there's simple things that, you know, sometimes your brain just needs a bit of a break. And I'll put my hand up, I quite like a little jigsaw to do every now and again, which I can just focus on that jigsaw, and my mind, I can actually come away with it, go, yeah, just give my mind a break, of just giving myself that little bit of a break. You know, I might get my shoulders a bit hunched up from cuddling over, but you know, the pieces. But yeah, it's that, you know, looking after ourselves, being a little bit, that rather than waiting until it breaks. And I think Prince Harry recently said to me, he's got a new job, and he sort of said, you know, his encouragement is, why do we not get people to look after the mental health before they're broken?
I mean, I could do a whole entire podcast about that, with my own experiences and things that are kind of, you know, the way I'm not going to ramble on. Let me out a way to reframe that. Yes, so I guess this is an important step in, as a society, recognizing that we don't need to get to breaking point, and actually it is important that we can be supported when we're having the sad days, as opposed to it being we have to wait until we are clinically depressed before someone can recognize that you might need some support and signpost you for how to help your sad days feel okay, or help you with your sad days not spiraling into sad weeks.
And that whole, if we're aware that people are, say, mental health first aiders, we might be inclined to go, look, can I just have a quick chat with you? Because by rights, they shouldn't be judgmental. They shouldn't be there. And what I will be absolutely clear about, they're not going to diagnose you. That's not what a mental health first aider does not diagnose and does not treat. I think there is a bit of a myth about the sort of the idea and the concept and the course. But I will absolutely say it is not about diagnosing, it's not about treating, it's about supporting people towards guidance, whether that be, just having, as you were saying, a few sad days. Is there any sort of support? Well, actually, you could look at there's various charities out there that have got sort of helpful tools and techniques to use. If it goes on a bit longer, you might want to speak to your GP and have a look at that side. So it's that given an array of options and ultimately saying you're not alone and you're not odd, because if you're the only one suffering, then we wouldn't have all of this support out there. And there is a lot of support out there, and I think people get scared to access that support. Or some people might go, I'm not that bad, my life's not that bad, really.
If I compare to somebody else, I'm not going through so much difficulty, so what makes me so special that I need help? It's like, no, we all need help, it just depends on what that help is.
And actually, I'm never going to sit here and go, well, you can't be like this because of that, because I have no idea what you've gone through. I have no idea of what you've experienced. And I mean, I've worked with some people that I've sat there and gone, wow, you are managing lots of things. And then it'll be the tiniest thing that can tip the balance. And I'm like amazed at that ability. And I can work with somebody else who has the smallest thing, in my mind, that I go, oh, okay, why is this causing you so much? That's the bit that needs to be looked at. I don't go, don't be stupid, why are you doing that? I go, right, okay, hold on a second. There's something else going on here. What is it? What can we do to make, in my sort of role? But it's that looking at that actually, I'm never going to say, no, sorry, you can't feel that way because you live in a lovely house, you have a job, you have lovely kids, you have a husband or a wife, you have everything, because it just isn't
because
like
it's not about that, is it? It's emotional resilience takes, like a muscle, takes time to build. So if you have never physically exercised, lifting the smallest weight in the world is going to be difficult and is going to leave you in pain afterwards. So mentally, emotionally, if you have never experienced a difficulty, when you come across a difficulty that you may think other people think is small, for you that is big. So why not go and work with somebody who can help you to lift that weight in a way that's going to work for you and help you manage that situation. So I think go on. No, sorry, Kate.
No, and I think what's coming back to this course is there's actually whole sections at the back that just sort of directs you to the various different bits and all the way through. And also it talks about symptoms and signs and symptoms, and you sort of realise, I was quite years ago, it was almost like, these are the signs and symptoms of this. And these are the signs and the symptoms of this. Now it's like, actually, those signs and symptoms could be anything and everything. It's effectively the change. If you notice a change is the biggest thing that I would say. If you notice a change in someone's behaviour, that would be the bit that would make me go, hold on, what's going on here? Because a lot of people go, well, if they're depressed, that means that they're not going to come into work. Actually, they might be coming into work to hide away from their depression. Or they sleep all the time. Or actually, they might not be sleeping. There's the opposites dependent, because it can almost be clumped with other things as well. So sometimes I'm like, actually notice the change, notice the difference. And it does a beautiful piece where it talks about, where we were talking about what's important to one person can be very different to somebody else. And it calls it frames of reference, and it centers back into like psychology, and you'll see, I mean,
you're talking my language now, so,
so frames of reference, where you're looking at, we have all grown up, and if we all sat down and looked at how we've grown up, we would all be different. So what we've seen, what we've experienced, what we've gone through will be different to the person sat next to us.
Yeah.
And even if you've grown up in the same street, in the house next door to each other, there'll still be differences in how
Even
you've
in the
grown up.
same household.
Yeah, you know, because of the society, because of the way that our family is, because of the way that everything's done, we are all different, and we will all manage things differently. And you know, even though I was trying I don't ever want to come across as dismissive of saying like the small things. I think you said a small thing for one person will be huge for somebody else, and they will cross over. And I've now learned to go, anything could do anything. And I look at myself and I go, wow, I'm not even sure I could manage that. Could I manage this? Could I, you know, I've been amazed by certain things, and even for myself. And sometimes I look at myself and I go, do you know what? One day I can manage something, the next day because I've not slept, or I might be hungover maybe, or I've done something else that suddenly I'm like, I can't manage that today. And that is causing me more anxiety or more stress. So it can even change from day to day, you know. And I think people forget that they're like, well, they seemed all right the other day. Yeah, but what else is going on? What else is happening? What's do that? And I think, you know, just even having this conversation just raises, and hopefully people start to go, oh, okay, it's not quite, mental health's not quite what I thought it was. And it can start off at such a low level that, as we said before, if you can get in at that low level, it's a lot better than when you're much, you know, further along.
I think that early intervention makes a difference, doesn't it? It in my own personal experience and client work, it's sort of knowing, like for me, you don't have to be depressed to connect with someone for support. Just recognizing that, like you said, there's been a change, or externally or internally, or even that, oh, there's something that I want to be able to chat about, that my friends and family are not the people that need to hear it. Because sometimes friends and family are not the people that you need to hear it. You need someone else to hear it and let you have space to speak. It can make such a difference. So yeah, like as I said before, like I'd heard about mental health first aid, but I didn't really understand where it fit in the framework of everything else in the wider world of helping. So it's been really useful for me to sort of hear a little bit about how that's going to fit in for other people. So what's your vision for the future with the mental health first aid for you and your organisation?
So pretty much as you said, we've not all heard of it. I think because it's centred quite a lot of big businesses and within the workplace. So there's quite a lot within So I fall at Mental Health First Aid England, and there's quite a lot towards the bigger organisations and the bigger workforces. For me, I'm looking at the smaller, so how we talked about hairdressers and beauticians and PTs. I think there's a world there of, rather than it just being about your work colleague and the person next to you, what about the clients that you're seeing? What about those regular sort of people that you come in contact with, that ability to go, if I ask the question, will I know what to do? So for me, it's very much looking at working with those smaller businesses, working with the sort of, you know, or even joining a couple of small businesses together to deliver training, so that it just gives them that confidence that if somebody sits there and says something, or I ask the question and they truly answer it, I will know where to go. And actually, as you said earlier on, you know, we don't always want to talk to our family and friends about it, and they don't need to hear some of the stuff, or we might not get a non-judgmental response, because you might get the, well, we grew up in the same house, so I don't know what you're thinking and talking about. Whereas, you know, sometimes your hairdresser or your PT or your beautician or somebody won't necessarily know all of that stuff, and they're just there to support you, listen to you, and you sometimes feel a bit safer. And sometimes we can feel a bit safer because we're not fully looking at them and we're not emotionally connected. So for me, it is looking towards those smaller businesses. So any smaller businesses out there, give me a bell.
And I think actually, like, I'm sitting here thinking, like, as me, as a 21-year-old, 22-year-old beauty therapist, who, like, people have always opened up to me. Like, I will sit on a bus and someone will share their life story with me. So as a young beauty therapist, I didn't know how to hold space in a way that was safe for me. So this, I guess, would have been really useful, because I would come away and feel like I would carry that with me. I would carry the weight of it with me. And of course, through my professional training, you learn how to work with your supervisor and do all of those other things to keep yourself safe so that your clients can speak to you. So yeah, being able to hear what somebody needs to say and feel confident in that you're not going to carry it around with you, and that you can say, yes, actually this might be helpful to you, speak to this person, would be so useful. And this didn't exist also, when I was 21 years old. It wasn't a thing.
And also, if you've got a small business and you're looking at doing that, it's then setting up that, well, how do you then support each other? You know, have you got a system in place that says when somebody does open up, where do you go with that? So you're cutting away the hair and you chat about things and you relay information. Then, as you say, you're sat with that going, oh my God, they just told me all that. What do I do with that now?
Yeah.
You know, could you then go and speak to another hairdresser, at least just to talk it out, you know, double check yourself, do whatever you need to do to feel, yeah, I did everything that I needed to do there, and I've not made things worse, I've not done anything. And you generally will never make anything worse, you know, even just somebody being able to talk about it is better than doing nothing at all. And it's that bit of being able to, as an organisation, as a small business or as a business, whatever size, is being able to then support those people. So there is that, for me, we'd be looking at, well, then what, it's brilliant, train up mental health first aiders, absolutely, but what are you going to do with them then? What's that do? And to be fair, Mental Health First Aid England does have that support, it has resources, it can look at that, you know, building it into policies of what you then do. But for me, it's that I probably double check in and go, right, exactly what are you going to do now? How are you going to manage that? Because brilliant, you know, I know it in a more professional, dealing with this sort of world all the time. You go, right, I told them, I've shared with them where to go and the information. Now what? Now I'm just sat here questioning myself. And then, or it can be something really emotive for you, and you're going, blimey, I've just told them all of that and I feel great. I feel like they're going to get the support that they need, but blimey, that's brought up stuff for me. What do I do now, and where do I go, and how do I sort of just, you know, put that back, you know? So for me, really, my aim and hopefully working towards is that, you know, given the opportunity for smaller businesses to have it. So when the courses, they look at like 16 people, I'm content to work with 4 people, 6 people, quite happy to do that smaller.
So salons and things that are starting to get ready for going back, you know, from this long enforced break that we've had. I will be popping your details into the description of this, so people can get in touch with you. And I guess if they're not in the right area for you, you can signpost them on as well. Because I mean, I would be thinking, you know, a lot of people are going to have a lot to talk about when they come back. So now's a good time to get on board, and equip yourself and your staff to be able to support your clients and each other. It sounds like it would be really helpful.
And I mean, if there are different areas, I mean, I'm quite happy to travel to a certain distance, but you go on to Mental Health First Aid England and it lists a lot of the other trainers around, so that you can see who's around, what's going on, and actually that gives you a lot more description into details and about other opportunities to do that. And it also, I think I briefly mentioned, you've got the Mental Health First Aid, which is a 2-day course, the Champions, which is a day's course, and Awareness, which is half a day. So you've got different variants of how far and what you wanted to do on them. They just sort of reduce in the depth of knowledge. Effectively.
So you can dip your toe before you full on commit to the long course.
And you might go, actually, sorry, if you've got a slightly bigger organisation, you might go, let's do awareness, and then pick certain people to do champions or different sort of the first aider.
Brilliant. Sorry, I'm noticing the time and very, very clumsily thinking, okay, probably should end it now. Thank you so much. I mean, I feel like, I know you've talked to me a little bit about it before when we've talked before, but it's definitely helped me have a little bit more of an understanding of what mental health first aid is. It's a hard sentence to say.
It is, yeah. It's not the easiest, no.
But thank you so much for joining me. And as I said, I'll pop all your links down below so people can get in touch with you, and we'll pop the people, the other Mental Health England in there as well, so people can find that. So thank you so much. And
no worries. It was been a pleasure.
Soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye.